Three, two, one. Okay, we are live. It's the Raw Prospect Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 55, our Super Bowl episode. Um, Thank you for listening and watching as always. And joining me from Austin, Texas, uh, the Stat King himself, Michael Wing. What's up, bro?
What is up, Emmy? It is a great week. It is Super Bowl week, Super Bowl 55. We are back for another episode of the Raw Prospect Podcast. Today we will be covering, obviously, the Super Bowl. We'll be getting into our score predictions and some prop bets, something we haven't done for previous Super Bowls. And then we're just going to continue our conversation about some of these NBA teams. Of course, last episode we covered NBA tiers. We put the teams into tiers, and we're going to go into our surprises and disappointments, something we didn't really have time for in our last episode. So thanks for joining us wherever you are, however you're listening to this podcast, wherever you may be watching, and hopefully you enjoy it.
Right. And we're actually anticipating a lot of new listeners and watchers. So we just wanted to give a little bit of background on ourselves a little bit. So I'm Emmy Nixon. I'm a golfer at Bethany College in Lindsborg, Kansas. I'm a sophomore and um, I'm a sports nerd. I have a fascination with uh, narratives surrounding sports, breakdown of film, giving analysis, and just the schematics of the game as well. And um, I'm still trying to learn and get better at what I do, but I truly enjoy it. And if you want to join us on this journey, consider subscribing and to our podcast. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on most podcast streaming
Platforms.
services. So um, it would be much appreciated. But Michael, you can go ahead and talk about yourself a little bit as well.
Yeah, so you heard Emmy. I'm Michael Ween. Um, I was born here in Austin, Texas, and I am a sophomore here at the University of Texas at Austin. So I've been in Austin my entire life. I'm studying advertising and marketing. It's kind of confusing, but and it's interesting because a big part of the Super Bowl is the marketing advertising aspect of it. So, we'll get into that for some of our prop bets. But yeah, I'm a sophomore here at UT. I love it here. The city has grown so much. And as Emmy said, I got into sports at a very young age. I started out playing soccer. That was the first sport I ever played, soccer and then t-ball. And then once I played flag football for the first time, and I guess started to learn about the game of football, that's really when my interest in sports really took off. And I love, like Emmy said, um, reading about sports. I've been a subscriber to Sports Illustrated from a very young age. Um, I love talking about sports with people who are also very passionate about sports, and just giving my opinions and my analytical perspective on the game. And also, if you're new to this podcast, you will realize, and Emmy knows this, that I'm very big on numbers and stats and analytics. So I think you'll find that out very quickly if you're new to this, based on what I have prepared for this Super Bowl game, and some of the prop bets. So I just love sports. I love how it can bring communities, countries, cities, everyone together, rooting for the same thing. It can unite people. Just everything about it is really, and the entertainment value, you really can't find anywhere else. So just everything about sports from a very young age got me interested, and this is how we really started this podcast.
Right. And it's how we became friends as well. We bonded over sports from the start. But that's a little bit about us, but you're here for the sports. So we're going to get right into this. So just a little bit of background on what we're going to be doing. So for me, I'm going to be breaking down Tampa Bay first, and then I'm going to get into some of the key stats for the game, and then I'm going to be breaking down Kansas City. So the first thing I wanted to say about Tampa Bay is one main thing that they do is they run the ball on 52% of first downs. So um, they do that to set up their play action game, which is faking the run and passing. So, and in the NFC Championship specifically, they doubled down on that. They ran the ball 65% of the time on first downs. But the key thing, though, is that they weren't particularly effective throughout the season. They only averaged 2.9 yards per carry, which is near the bottom of the league. That's not very good. But what that meant is in that specifically in that NFC Championship game, that made it to where they faced a lot of long third downs and they ended up having to pass on 86% of their third downs in that NFC Championship game against the Packers. So that basically put the outcome of the game in Tom Brady's hands. And he delivered as he tends to do. But I find it very interesting that they continue to run this old school style of football when the majority of the NFL seems to be going away from that. But I'll let you chime in here before I get into some of my other statistics.
Yeah, I guess since we're coming from a Tampa Bay perspective, I'll do that as well, so we can kind of stay on the same wavelength here, not kind of sidetrack. For me, it's really what do we always talk about with Tom Brady when it comes to Tom Brady playing in Super Bowls? We always talk about how do you beat Tom Brady? We always talk about interior pressure, and that's really what I'm looking at here more than anything. I guess on both sides of the ball, both when Kansas City has the ball and when Tampa Bay has the ball, is the play of the front seven of each defense and the play of the offensive line of each offense. Now, when I look at Tom Brady, um, historically, the blueprint to beat Tom Brady is to generate pressure, but generate it with only your front four and generate pressure on the interior because he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not going to extend plays outside the pocket. He's never been that way. So if you can collapse the pocket and generate interior pressure from the inside, you can let your exterior, your edge rushers finish the rush. That's how you historically beat Tom Brady. Now, in the playoffs, under pressure this postseason, Tom Brady has not been good. In fact, he's been terrible. He's 6 out of 21, 29% completion, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 5 times with a passer rating of 32. That is not good. Um, if you're looking at players, just like he was in last year's Super Bowl, Chris Jones, when he was paid as such, is going to be a critical X factor in this game. He was the second highest graded interior pass rusher. So I'm talking about defensive tackles or nose tackles. He was the second highest graded interior defensive lineman, obviously behind the great Aaron Donald, who plays for the Los Angeles Rams. So I'm looking at Kansas City's interior pass rush against a Tampa Bay offensive line that ranked that graded out, I believe, as like the 5th best in the entire league during the regular season, and it has been very good up to this point in the playoffs. So it's all really going to come down to that. And I'll get into it when we get to the Kansas City side of things more because I think Kansas City's pretty decimated on their offensive line, and obviously know, if you've watched football this year, what Tampa Bay is capable of defensively. But for me, when you're watching this game and it's Tampa Bay offense and Kansas City defense, it's watching how Steve Spagnuolo dials up his pressures, one, and two, can they generate pressure up the middle? Because that's really all it comes down to when going up against Tom Brady.
Right. And that's a huge key. You mentioned that he hasn't been good against under pressure this over the course of the playoffs. But the thing that I noticed was he's only been pressured 21 times the entire playoffs. That's unbelievable. Um, that's 3 games of football against very good pass rushes. Washington, uh, they have Chase Young, obviously, Montez Sweat. Those 2 first-round picks up the middle. I'm blanking on their names at the moment, but they're really solid as well. They're really good across their entire defensive line. And obviously the Saints, they were incredible all year on their defensive line. They didn't allow any pressures at all that game. And then Green Bay, who they aren't as good rushing the passer. I actually have a stat right here, um, specifically on third down. They're 24th in the league in terms of pressure rate, and I'm gonna tie that in later when I get to my point about third down. Um, I'll actually get into that right now. So um, when I said earlier about them passing 86% of the time on third down, um, if you watch that game, the NFC Championship game, uh, you saw a lot of times the Buccaneers got into a lot of third and long situations, and Tom Brady kept on bailing him out and bailing him out and bailing him out. Um, I'm not as confident in them being able to do that against this Chiefs team. The Chiefs are second in the league in pressure rate on third down at 49%, and they're second in the league in terms of uh, against the pass on third down in general. So they're really solid in terms of getting off the field on third down. But the another key is they're last in the league against the rush on third down. So my point being, if they can get the third down in manageable situations, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, instead of the 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 12s and all of those, then they can methodically work their way down the field and keep Patrick Mahomes off the field in the process.
Are we just that like synced up? You stole my exact stats and exact point for that.
Wow. Okay.
Um, anyways, I was about to, that was going to be my next point. Obviously, um, not expecting that you were going to bring up the exact same thing I was going to bring up. But yes, I agree totally. Tampa Bay's offense, their ability to convert on third downs like they were able to do in the Packers game, specifically on those third and longs, when they get behind the chains and I guess aren't staying on schedule. If that Kansas City pass rush is getting to Brady and having an effect, will they be able to continue that success that they've had in games past of converting on third down and long? And the stats say that it's going to be difficult because on third and long situations for casual football fans, that means third and 6 to 10 yards to go. The Chiefs only allow a 26% third down conversion rate. That's third best in the NFL. So, like Emmy said, they're going to have to stay on schedule. Keep moving the ball on first and second down so you don't get yourselves in to that third and long situation where Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, can start to dial up the pressure and just play sort of the late movement zones, zone blitzes that he likes to do, typically against a Tom Brady offense. But Emmy hit it right on the head. It's going to be Tampa Bay's ability to keep hitting on those third downs, specifically the third down and longs, because as he said, um, they were able to do it successfully in the Green Bay game, but Green Bay situationally just wasn't a very good defense. And we saw it play out in multiple facets, including the touchdown they gave up at the very end of the first half. That was a blown coverage. So it just, you know, it, they were very bad situationally. This Kansas City defense, although they're not great statistically, they are very good situationally. And we saw that play out against Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game. So up to this point in the postseason, Tampa Bay's converting 51% of third downs. That's second amongst the 14 postseason teams, only behind, of course, Kansas City. But yeah, they're going to have to figure out a way to hold up against that Kansas City pressure and to continue to convert these third downs if they want to be able to win this game. Because it's all about, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's all about limiting the possessions of one Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, we both agree in that respect. But I will say this. I guess this is kind of my last point. In looking at this game from a Tampa Bay offense versus Kansas City defense perspective, I do think, and you mentioned the run game, Tampa Bay has a much greater need and a much, I think, better chance of establishing the run in this game. Kansas City, and we'll get into this later, is a very, very, very pass-heavy offense. And that will come into play obviously later in our prop bets, as you'll see later. But I think Leonard Fournette, Playoff Lenny, that's his nickname now, you're gonna see a very heavy dose, very good dose of Leonard Fournette early and often. They need to establish that so they can kind of minimize the pressures of a Steve Spagnuolo defense and keep them honest. You got to keep this defense honest. So far in the postseason, he's racked up 313 scrimmage yards in 3 games. So that's about a little over 100 per game and 3 touchdowns. And actually, Leonard Fournette has led the Bucks in receptions the past 2 weeks. That's kind of surprising to some people, but what do we know about Tom Brady in Super Bowls? He's going to take what the defense gives him. And so I think not only can Leonard Fournette have success against that Kansas City run defense, which is middle of the pack. They rank 19th this year, allowing 120 rush yards per game. That's just below average in the NFL, or just below middle of the pack, I should say. Not only will they have success there, or do I think they can, but watch for Leonard Fournette in the passing game. He's been a favorite target of Brady as of late. And in the last Super Bowl, we saw Brady in. What did he do? We saw a lot of checkdowns to James White and such. So Brady's not going to force anything. I think you can see are going to see a heavy dose of Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, provided that they're healthy. And I think that's going to play a big part because Tampa Bay needs that play action game to be effective offensively. So for me, in summary, it's Tampa Bay. You got to be good on third downs. You got to stay on script. You got to stay on schedule. The offensive line is going to have to continue to be good against that interior pressure or pressure in general. keep Tom Brady, give him a clean pocket, and establish the run. I know it's going to be hard because Kansas City is an explosive offense. And if you get behind, it's kind of easy to abandon the running game. But I think you got to stay with it. You have to stay with it. So, and one more thing. Weather could play a factor in this game. And they say, I think it's a 40% chance of rain at kickoff. It's not going to be super cold. It's going to be right around 65, 70 degrees. But that 30 to 40% chance of rain at kickoff, if it is raining, and I know we've seen Patrick Mahomes play in tough conditions too, but if it is raining in his last 6 games in the rain, Tom Brady, he's 6-0. He's averaging about 270 passing yards per game, rounded up, and he has 15 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. So just watch out for the weather as a factor, especially on this side of the ball, because it definitely won't. Or historically, it says that that's not going to bother either quarterbacks, and it definitely is not going to bother the GOAT, Tom Brady.
Right. And on top of that as well, on top of Tom Brady being historically good in the rain, it also just doesn't play into Kansas City style of play. If it's rainy and it's wet, it's just going to take away a little bit of Kansas City's speed a little bit in terms of their ability to cut and be sharp on their routes. And I think that might play a big factor as well. But I wanted to get a little bit. I have a little bit more to say on the Tampa Bay side. So one thing that I wanted to mention earlier is that I watched the Week 12 matchup between these two teams, and I had a bunch of takeaways from that game. One is Gronk played a fantastic game that day. They got to get Gronk involved. That's going to be a big key. The Chiefs struggle a lot when against tight ends in line, meaning that they're even with the offensive linemen and they're not in the slot, like disconnected from the line, basically. And so that will be a big key. Gronkowski and Cameron Brate, they need to get them involved. Another thing is in the second half of that game, Tampa Bay started spreading out the formations a little bit more, doing a lot more pre-snap motion, and that actually kickstarted what they did the rest of the year following that post their bye week. If you look at Tampa Bay before their bye week, they did pre-snap motion 40% of the time. Post bye week, 62% of the time, and they went undefeated over that span. And the key thing about doing pre-snap motion against the Chiefs is Steve Spagnuolo is known for doing very unique and crazy coverages and combinations. So what motion allows you to do is it makes the defense declare man or zone by seeing whether the corners follow that receiver in motion or whether they stay in their area, basically. So that will be a big key as well. Another underrated factor is this. Nobody's talking about this. Tom Brady basically has been left alone in his house for 12 days leading up to the Super Bowl. This is basically, and it's a home Super Bowl, so he has so much time on his hands. No media week, basically, since COVID, and he's got all this time. Well, what does that mean, though? He's basically going to watch every single snap Kansas City took defensively and probably offensively too, knowing him. He's probably going to be very detailed, and I think it'll be really interesting to see what game plan, what adjustments he wants to put in based on the film that he watches. I think if you give a guy like Tom Brady, who's a master of the game, this much time to dive into film, he's going to find holes. Um, which leads into my next point. Um, Another thing that happened in that Week 12 game between these teams is Kansas City played a lot of bracket coverage with whoever was in the slot, meaning that they would double cover whoever was in the slot, whether that be Chris Godwin. It was Chris Godwin most of the time, or whether that be Antonio Brown. Um, but by doing that, it left one-on-ones outside with help over the top, of course, but it's still one-on-ones. Tampa Bay wasn't able to hit on a lot of those that game, but that was when they were still trying to figure out their chemistry. That was in their they're a different offense now than they were then. And I think they would hit a lot more of those opportunities this game if that opportunity presents itself. So I think Kansas City needs to see that and make the proper adjustment. Because if you let Tom Brady get into a rhythm with these receivers, hitting big shots down the field, um, they're going to put a lot of points.
Yeah, I think that's one aspect of sports that I love so much. These storylines that come up every once in a while. And when I heard that Tom Brady storyline, he asked his family, the rest of his family, to leave the house. And he has like a 22,000 square foot mansion. And so, there's a lot of space in there where he could kind of isolate himself, have the family on the totally opposite side of the house and just have him in one side of the house, watching film. And he still have plenty of space. But the fact that he asked his family to leave the house for 12 days so he could have it all to himself just goes to show you why he's the GOAT and why he's continuing to perform at the level he's performing at. So that may or may not have played a factor into my prediction, but you will find that out shortly. So with that, you want to get into the other side of the ball.
Right, Kansas City. I guess I'll start off here. So in the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs went away from their home run hitting offense, deep pass offense, and they went a little bit more towards what they did in the Alex Smith area, a lot more dink and dunk. 76% of the throws in that game were 10 yards or less. And also, if you look at the route tree or the pass chart, I that's a better term for it. The pass chart of Mahomes that day, they game planned to where he wouldn't have to make too many passes to the left side of the field so that he wouldn't have to plant on that turf toe in his left foot. So assuming that's a little bit more healed, I think Kansas City could get back to the home running hitting offense. But what's funny is I think Mahomes played a fantastic game doing that dink and dunk offense. And I think they could actually, if they continued to do that, I think they could be extremely effective. They ran a lot of run pass options, which is basically you basically put the ball into the running back's belly and you hold it there, reading the linebackers to see if your routes would be open. And if it's open, you pull it out and you throw. Or if it's not open, you continue, you let go and you have the running back run it. And those kind of plays are so tough to stop, especially with Kansas City being such a fast team. If the receivers have any type of space, they're gone. And you saw it time and time again. yards after catch. That was a huge part of their offense in that game against the Bills, and they were basically flawless the entire game.
Exactly. I want to get into what I said I was going to get into earlier, and that's this Kansas City offensive line versus this Tampa Bay front four in particular. If you look at the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, it's decimated with injuries. If you watch the AFC Championship, you know that left tackle Eric Fisher went down with a torn Achilles. That's very unfortunate. We're wishing him the best. Hopefully, he comes back even stronger next season. But if you look at their projected starters on the offensive line for this game, left tackle Mike Rimmers. He hasn't played left tackle since 2016, and he started this season as a backup. So he hasn't played a lot. He hasn't played a lot of this position, obviously. And if you remember him, the last Super Bowl he played in, he was with the Carolina Panthers. And, Von Miller kind of, gave him the business. So just saying, now he has to go against Jason Pierre-Paul on that left side of that Kansas City offensive line. So it's not getting any easier, per se. Left guard, Nick Allegretti, I believe is how you say his name. He began this season as a backup, and he's a 7th-round pick with limited experience. This is only his second year in the league. Their center, Austin Ryder, he's the only remaining starter from week 1 on this offensive line. So I guess that's good for the Chiefs. You have right guard, Steven Wisniewski, who I am very familiar with as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He was with the Steelers, but they cut him in November. And if that's telling you anything with some of the struggles they had, Pittsburgh, per se, in the running game, then I don't know how confident you should be in his abilities. And then right tackle, Andrew Wiley, playing as an undrafted free agent. Doesn't have much experience at all in these situations. So it's going to be interesting to see how this will affect Kansas City's plan schematically. We know Andy Reid's very clever. We know he's going to come up with something to kind of, I guess, cover for some of the maybe, weaknesses in this offensive line. Will they keep an extra tight end in the game? Will they bring an extra offensive lineman? It's going to be interesting to watch how this affects their plan schematically on offense. But from a Tampa Bay defensive perspective, we know that this Tampa Bay defense is one of the best in the league at rushing the passer and creating turnovers. But if you look at that first matchup, blitzing is not going to be the answer for this Tampa Bay defense. And the reason is because Patrick Mahomes is putting up historically good numbers against the blitz. This year, he led the NFL by a mile in passer rating when blitzed, with a 136.5 passer rating, which is just absolutely incredible. So I don't think you're going to see Todd Bowles, even though it's his, I guess, it's what he's known for, is blitzing, being aggressive and blitzing. I don't think you're going to see that. I think it's going to come down to generating pressure with that front four. And when I mean the front four, I mean the defensive line. Jason Pierre-Paul, Ndamukong Suh. They have Vita Vea back. I'll get into that in a second. And Shaq Barrett, who was just absolutely a game wrecker in the Green Bay game. You look at Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul as an edge rushing duo. They lead the league in sacks the past 2 years as a duo with 45.5 sacks. That's ahead of Bud Dupree and TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. And Shaq Barrett this year, I mentioned he was a game wrecker in the Green Bay game. He led the NFL in total pressures with 76 and pressure rate, 16.3%. So you're going to have an undrafted free agent blocking Shaq Barrett, and you're going to have Mike Rimmers, a guy who has experience but has struggled against elite pass rushers in big games, blocking Jason Pierre-Paul. And then you add back in Vita Vea, who graded actually the third highest interior defensive lineman when he played this season, according to Pro Football Focus, and had actually 2.5 sacks in 6 games. You add him back into the equation with Ndamukong Suh. It's going to be a question of whether this Kansas City offensive line can hold up against this front four pass rush of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I don't think you're going to see them blitz much, because Patrick Mahomes, and if you watch film, he's just too good at creating off script against the blitz. So that's going to be the thing I'm watching for the most in this game from a Kansas City offensive perspective.
Right. And I mentioned earlier, maybe I'm speculating here, but maybe that dink and dunk play that they had against the Bills throughout the game, maybe that was more of knowing that they were limited on the offensive line, and also knowing that Mahomes was hurting a little bit with his toe. And I think some of that might transition into this game. If you look at that Bills game, um, Mahomes was only pressured 11 times that entire game. He had almost 40 dropbacks. So um, the pass rush didn't really get there, and he was getting the ball out extremely quickly. So if he can continue to do that, it's yet to be seen. We'll see. But I think if they can get the ball out quickly, I think it won't be as big of a factor as we may think. And that's the hope if you're a Kansas City fan.
Right.
One stat I wanted to mention here is um, this is a little bit unrelated, but in games, Patrick Mahomes has had at least 4 days of rest, meaning basically any non-Thursday night football game. When leading at halftime, he's 31-0. So he has never lost ever. And that's not a small sample size. That's basically 2 full seasons of football, and he's never lost. That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, for Tampa Bay, you're going to have to, if you're not leading at halftime, you have to be within, I'd say, a touchdown to have a legit chance. And I know we all know the history of Tom Brady and, coming back from large deficits in the Super Bowl. But this is different. This is Kansas City. This is an explosive offense, and they're not going to take their foot off the gas. Take their foot off the gas. Um, so, but we can't talk about the Kansas City offense without mentioning Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce,
Right.
and how Tampa Bay is going to have to strategize their game plan to at least limit or make it difficult for one of them. It's going to be really tough to stop both. But in that first matchup, now granted, as we've seen in these playoffs, especially, the regular season matchup hasn't really mattered that much when talking about the playoff matchups. But in that regular season game, the Week 12 game or whatever it was, Tyreek Hill went off in the first quarter, 200 plus receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, whatever it was. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they bracket their coverages, because you have Hill, who's been elite, 104 receptions, 1,558 yards, 15 touchdowns. And then you have Kelce, 126 receptions, over 1,600 yards and 14 touchdowns. And some people are saying he's having one of the greatest, if not the greatest season by a tight end in NFL history.
Right.
You can definitely make an argument there. So it's pure poison. Who are you going to bracket? Who are you going to double team? Because if you play man and you, let's say, bracket Tyreek Hill, meaning you play man coverage with the cornerback and you shift a safety or whatever to that side and play double coverage, um, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to the middle of the field and, the things that Travis Kelce can do in the middle of the field. And if you just play zone, sit back and play zone, both of them can eat you up. Obviously, we know what Tyreek Hill is capable of from a speed perspective, and we know, Travis Kelce, Mahomes really likes to target him down in the red zone and when he's open in the middle of the field, when he needs someone to go to under pressure. Travis Kelce is usually there to bail him out. So I don't know if you have any opinions on this, on how you think Tampa Bay should approach this defensively. I'm more of like I'm approaching this from more of a statistical perspective. Um, but do you have any read on how you think Tampa Bay should approach this defensively?
Well, there's no one perfect way to do it because the thing is, these two guys complement each other so well.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill stretches the field, that opens up the underneath stuff. Travis Kelce is underneath, he gets double teamed, boom, you get one on one the outside. So there's no one good way to do it. You gotta experiment with different things throughout the game, and you gotta switch it up. You gotta keep them on their toes a little bit. I think that has to be the main focus. If you run it one way throughout the game, eventually Kansas City will figure you out, and you don't want to be there when that happens. Trust me. And they know they were there in Week 12 when they got torched, and um, they ended up making the adjustments, and it wasn't enough. Uh, if they get torched again like that, that's it. Like there's no like this is the Super Bowl. Like this is the big game. You can't let that happen. You gotta switch things up and you gotta keep things fresh throughout the game.
Exactly. And I think if we know one thing, I think it's going to be that they're not going to let Tyreek Hill be the guy that beats them this time around, like he did in that Week 12 matchup. I think they're going to be especially focused on taking him out of the game early, or at least trying to limit the effect that he has on this game, at least in the early parts, for that matter. But that leaves you vulnerable to not only the underneath stuff with Travis Kelce, but also if you're committing extra defenders to limiting or stopping Tyreek Hill, I mean, you have um, McCole Hartman, who also is a speedster and can take the top off the defense and can make big plays, not only in the pass game, but in the running game as well, as we saw in the Bills AFC Championship. And then someone we haven't even seen these playoffs is Sammy Watkins. I don't know his health status for this game. Maybe I can check on that here in a minute. But if he's playing, that just adds another element to this game. So for Tampa Bay, as you said, you just have to experiment, see what works early. I would start by bracketing Tyreek Hill. Um, so, deja vu doesn't happen all over again, and see where that takes you. But you just got to change it up. Give them different looks. Give them as many different looks as you can, and make it to where it's death by 1,000 cuts, rather than explosive play after explosive play after explosive play. Because if you get into that track meet, you have very little to no shot at winning this game. So there you go.
Right. Um, One other thing. Here's another stat nugget for y'all. Basically, so Tampa Bay is 28th in the league in yards given up on plays where the offense has pairs pre-snap motion with play action, and uh, Kansas City, they happen to run that on about a fourth of their plays. They run that all the time, and when I watched that original game, the first play of the game, play action, pre-snap motion, play action, 33 yards to Tyreek Hill. It's right there. Like, that's going to be a big key. And a funny thing is, no team playing Tampa Bay has done that throughout the entire playoffs, not even once. So look for Kansas City to take advantage of that. This is not one of those things that they were able to patch up after the bye week. This is just one of those things that they struggled with the entire season. So that might play a key factor as well.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at X factors, especially this side of the ball with Kansas City offense against Tampa Bay defense, one guy I think you have to pay attention to, and I guess general football fans might not know much about, or I guess probably never even heard of him, is Sean Murphy Bunting, the cornerback for Tampa Bay. He's been a big part of what they've been able to do. He was shadowing for most of the game. Devontae Adams actually had a pick while covering Devontae Adams in that game against Green Bay. Came up huge with a couple big plays against New Orleans. He's just been an overall very good player who stepped up here as of late for Tampa Bay. I keep your eye on him, along with, of course, the edge rushers, Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. And then I think the middle linebacker play is going to be also key for Tampa Bay. We know that they've been one of the best run defenses in the league, and we saw that in the first matchup. Kansas City only rushed for I think 87 yards in that game, well below their average. So we know what they're capable of in the running game, but Levante David and Devin White, if he plays, it'll be interesting to see how Kansas City manipulates those matchups. Can they get, um, how will they fare against Travis Kelce or potentially a running back split out wide?
Right.
Their play and coverage is going to be key if they want to slow down this Kansas City offense. So I pay attention to, Sean Murphy Bunting, the linebackers, and then of course the edge rushers for this Tampa Bay defense.
Right. And not only coverage for those linebackers, but also eye discipline.
Right.
Kansas City, they do a whole lot of motion. They give you a whole lot of eye candy, a lot of fakes. So if you're not disciplined and you're caught looking in the wrong spot, you can get burnt. And all it takes is one play. It's extremely difficult to do, but Tampa Bay is well equipped to be disciplined. They have the players. They're elite on all levels of the field, and especially at linebacker. So if any team can do it, it's them.
Exactly. So now, if we have in fact covered what we need to, given that you don't have anything else to say, from I guess
Wait. Super Bowl MVP predictions, or do you?
well, I was going to say let's get to the prediction part of
Oh,
this.
right. Okay, I should have let you finish.
Do a score prediction and then an MVP prediction.
Okay.
So, you want to go first on this?
Okay. So Kansas City's favored 3.5. It's so tough, I have two rules as a sports fan, right? Don't bet against Tom Brady and don't bet against Patrick Mahomes, and it just cancels out. So it's so tough, but I think I think I'm gonna pick Kansas City, but I think it's gonna be the over, especially if it's not raining too badly. But if it does rain really hard, I think it could go Tampa Bay's direction because of their ability to run the ball. Tampa Bay has a really good run defense, and Kansas City isn't really known for if they're having difficulty running the ball, they're not going to stick to it. They're not going to. They're going to fling it all over the field, which is okay, but in the rain that can get a little bit dicey. So, um, final answer. I'm going to say Kansas City. Kansas City 38-35, maybe a game-winning field goal or something of that nature. I think the winner of this game is going to have the ball last. I don't see a scenario where it's like a defensive battle. I think the offenses are going to be at their best, and both offenses are coming into this game at humming, and they're in rhythm, and it's going to be a fun game to watch. Hopefully,
Hopefully.
right?
Uh, I know we are being aired in on a television station in Kansas, and although Kansas City is located in Missouri, there are still a bunch of Kansas City fans up in that area. Kansas, Nebraska,
Right.
Missouri area, kind of the Midwest, if you will. Um, Now, I have one rule in sports, and that's not to bet against Tom Brady. Now, we all know that Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City offense is great, and they're super explosive. Andy Reid off a bye is insane. He's like 26-5 when he has an extra week to prepare. That's like the best winning percentage of any coach in NFL history off a bye week, beating out even Belichick, which is very, very surprising to some people. We know that he's going to come up with some very clever play calls. We know he's been prepping for this game in his basement, eating cheeseburgers probably the entire time to kind of lower his whatever stress levels he has, and we know that he probably will eat a cheeseburger regardless of the outcome of this game. But I just wanna say that don't hate me. This is nothing against Kansas City. I'm not a bad person, but I can't bet against Tom Brady. And if you look at what Tampa Bay has been since their bye week, they've been the better football team, the better, more talented football team. They're averaging about 35 points per game since that game, and Kansas City is only averaging about 27. So they're about a full touchdown better than Kansas City has been since the Week 13 bye week. So they're better offensively. I think they're a deeper football team. I think they're the more talented defense. Um, and Tom Brady, been there, done that, every situation. So I don't like it, but as a sports fanatic, we've learned to appreciate greatness,
Right.
whether you like someone or not. And I think this is just going to slam the door on everything you can ever say bad about Tom Brady. He's going to get his seventh ring. I'm picking the over. It is a big over. It's like 56 and a half or 57, I believe.
Right.
Um, I'm picking 64 total points. Tampa Bay 34, Kansas City 30. And I think it will be a late drive to a touchdown drive from Tom Brady to put him up 34-30. And then Patrick Mahomes and the offense will have one more chance, but they'll come up just short. I believe in this Tampa Bay defense. So that's my prediction. Don't hate me. If you're a Chiefs fan, I sort of hope I'm wrong because I really don't want Tom Brady to win another Super Bowl, but it's my number one rule is don't bet against the GOAT. I guess you can make an argument it's GOAT versus young GOAT. Some people are saying Patrick Mahomes, especially if he wins this game, there are going to be arguments to be made that not only is he already a Hall of Famer, but he's going to be on that pace to potentially pass up Tom Brady one day, provided that everything goes right and he plays long enough at a high level. So, and my MVP, ooh, I didn't think much about this one, but I think I'd have to go with Brady. I know that's chalky, but I will say a sleeper pick for MVP on the Tampa Bay side would be Leonard Fournette.
Okay.
I think we're going to see a heavy dose of him in the run and the pass. And I think if Tampa Bay wins, he'll play a big part in it, just like James White did in previous Super Bowls. So there you go.
Okay. I I mean, I don't disagree with you. If Tampa Bay wins, I wouldn't be surprised. I know how good this Tampa Bay team is. I just think Kansas City will get that one more big play.
Hey, and
But
that's I mean, either way, you can as football fans, as what we like to, I guess, think ourselves as football analysts, um, you can make a very legit argument for both teams, and we're hoping to see a high scoring game. Hopefully, the weather doesn't play too much of a factor, but and some of the Super Bowls, the past couple of years have been sort of disappointing. Haven't lived up to what we thought. Um, we got the one barn burner with the Eagles and Patriots 3 years ago, but other than that, been kind of with the Super Bowls.
right,
Uh, but I look at it like this: like Kansas City, yes, they won and they were fantastic in the fourth quarter, and that's probably what this game's going to come down to is the fourth quarter. But it was basically Jimmy Garoppolo's failure to make that one extra big play that they needed, that big pass down the field. And I think if it comes down to that, Tom Brady will make that throw. So, I mean, it's two different, you can look at it from two different lenses.
right.
And so, did you make a prediction for MVP or did I miss that?
I didn't do any prep on MVP specifically, but I will pick one. I think I'm going to pick an offensive guy and a defensive guy. I think offensively, I'm going to say Tyreek Hill. I think he has a really good matchup against Tampa Bay in general. I just think his speed is going to change the outcome of the game, and I think uh, the voters will see that if he wins, obviously. And then a defensive guy, I think would have to be Chris Jones.
Okay.
If he wrecks the middle of that offensive line for Tampa Bay, he can change the outcome himself alone because he can wreck the rhythm that they have if he's able to get pressure up the middle. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, Tampa Bay has a great offensive line, but if he's able to make an impact, uh, his impact will be multiplied because of how important of a position he plays in terms of playing Tom Brady, as you mentioned earlier. So,
All right. So I don't know how far we are into this, but we are going to transition into our prop bet segment. I compiled a list of 12 prop bets. They consist of everything from pregame to in-game to post-game bets that we can make on this game. So let's get into it. We're going to run through 12 prop bets. Some of them have to do with the halftime show. Some of them have to do with commercials. Obviously, some of them have to do with the actual game itself. Some of them have to do with the post game and the pregame. So we'll kind of start chronologically. We'll run through them pretty quickly. The first one, this will probably occur first, is the national anthem. Over under 120 seconds, 2 minutes. Make your pick.
I mean, I don't know, man. Some of these are so random, but if I gotta make my pick, I guess I'll say over because in a big event like this, I'd say like you want to like extend out the notes a little bit, but I'm not gonna act like I know anything about music, so that's just my guess. I don't know, man.
The fun of this. That's what this is supposed to be.
Right.
Um, I'm going under 2 minutes. I'm been kind of big into looking at all these bets you can make aside from the actual game itself. These prop bets have been a very interesting thing to me the past couple of days. And I've done limited research on this. And there's actually a stat. The last three Super Bowl national anthems have all been under the 2 minute mark. So I think history will repeat itself and it will be around a minute 45 seconds.
Okay. So you know your stuff. That's cool. That's cool. Okay. So the next one I have it here on my phone is the coin toss. Now this is really a flip of a coin right here. This is 50. Heads or tails? Who you got? Or what do you got?
Tails never fails. So I'm going tails. 6 out of the last 7 Super Bowl coin tosses have resulted in tails. And in the previous 54 Super Bowls, the tally is 29 for tails and 25 for heads. But I will say that from 2009 to 2013, we had a streak of 5 straight heads. I know this is kind of foreign.
For everything. This is ridiculous. How do you find this stuff?
To what?
This is why I call him the stat king, y'all. This is why.
What we usually do, this is kind of different, but I wanted to implement some humor, especially since we're being televised for the first time. And I thought this would be kind of funny.
Right. This is good.
You can make the argument that heads is due. It's time here in Super Bowl 55 since 6 out of the last 7 Super Bowls have been tails, but tails never fails. So I'm going tails.
Right. And I'm going with heads for the sake of disagreement. Tails always fails. Tails always fails.
Okay, we can.
Okay.
As you said, it is a flip of the coin. So
Right.
one thing, the team that wins the coin toss in the Super Bowl is 0-6 in the past 6 Super Bowls.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Just
Okay.
throwing it out there. Interesting nugget that I found, of course. So
I feel like the team that wins it always defers. So that's interesting. That's interesting. The next one is first. What does that say?
no, the next one I have is total number of commercials.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I see that now.
Over under 92 and a half. I'll give you a little bit of perspective on this since I do have this background. So yeah, over the past 18 Super Bowls, the average number of commercials has been 88. So it's been under. And over the past 5 Super Bowls, the average is around 91. So just under. I am going to say under. I think as an advertising major, given that a lot of these big brands have pulled out of the Super Bowl, it might be kind of a down year for commercials. And I believe just last year we only saw 77 commercials. So the past couple of years have kind of been down years as far as commercials go. And I think with this COVID stuff kind of impacting these different brands, and some of these big brands like Budweiser, who's usually a big marketer in the Super Bowl. Coke and Pepsi have also pulled out of this game. So, and they're using their money for other, reasons. They're donating to charity and stuff. So good for them. I applaud them for doing that. But I think we're going to continue to see kind of this trend of kind of a down year in terms of not only the quality of commercials, but the number of commercials. So that's why I'm going under.
Okay. I think I'll go under as well. That I mean, all those stats seem pretty legit. So I mean, the fact that Budweiser is pulling out, Coke and Pepsi are pulling out, like those are like brands that have multiple commercials every year. So and Budweiser's uh specifically for them, they do like long commercials where it's like a whole story behind the commercial, like so yeah, I'll say under too.
So the next one, I don't have a stat for this, but the next one also is a commercial one.
Okay.
Anheuser-Busch, the big overarching brand for all these beer brands. They have Bud Light, um, Michelob Ultra, um, Stella, all these Budweiser. They're just the big overarching brand for all these beers. It's the first beer commercial, basically, to put it that way. Will it be Bud Light? They're the betting favorite. Bud Light Seltzer, they are the second favorite. Then you have Michelob Ultra and Stella Artois, I think is how you say
Stella
it.
Artois.
Artois.
Right.
Excuse me.
I have a Dutch guy on my golf team, so
There you go.
I've been educated.
I just went with my gut. I think it's going to be Bud Light Seltzer. I've actually seen the commercial and may or may not have insight into where it's going to be placed um, in the game because you got to buy your spot, but you also got to buy when your spot's going to be played. So
Right.
I think I just have a feeling that seems like it's kind of a light, Bud Light Seltzer lemonade. It's kind of a light. It just seems to me like that's kind of like an early game commercial. I don't know.
Right.
Um,
And that's one of those things that's really being pushed through marketing right now. Like seltzer is really big. Like you're seeing all these brands getting their own seltzer. Like Corona has one. Even Michelob just made one. So I think you're probably right. But for the sake of disagreement, again, I'm gonna go with Bud Light. So I don't have any logic behind that. I'm just
there's no what's the word? There's no I
criteria.
guess yeah.
There's no
So
criteria.
there you go. All right, next one. The number of songs played during the halftime show.
Ooh.
Now, I'm gonna give you some more insight on this. I'm going over 8, and these are the stats that I have to back up my thinking.
Okay.
Um, During the past 10 Super Bowls, halftime artists have averaged about 9 songs, so over the total. And during the past 3, you look at last year with J Lo and Shakira, they did 15 songs, which is kind of out of the norm, but they had two artists, so it was kind of more. It was kind of an outlier, so to speak. The previous year, with that terrible Super Bowl between the Rams and Patriots, had Maroon 5 do 9 songs, so just over. And then the year before that, with Justin Timberlake, you had 11 songs. So historically, it's gone over 8. That's why I'm picking 8. But then again, I don't know much about the weekend. Um, so I don't know, how many songs he's gonna. I don't know. So there can be unexpected things happen during the halftime show. So I'm going over, but that's just my gut.
I'm gonna say over also. I mean, he has quite a few hits. So and typically on these halftime shows, they'll play a cut of like the song. Like we'll play like the beginning of it, and then we'll go straight into the next song, like straight into it. So it just like transitions really quickly from song to song, and they're not playing any like full songs So I think it'll definitely be over, and I think possibly you could see like some like guest features uh, coming because there's a lot of songs uh, the weekend has that have features in them, like with Future or like I don't know, someone like that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Another one that has to do with the halftime show. A number of times that the weekend will change his wardrobe. And I was kind of surprised by this. It's only over under point 0.5. So if you bet the over and he changes his clothes one time, you win the money. And I feel like now that it's being reported that he spent um, $7 million of his own money on this halftime show to make it what it's going to be, I feel like there has to be at least one wardrobe change. But maybe this is all a Vegas. What's the word?
And just you.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he won't change it. Maybe they're gonna try to Vegas is gonna try to I guess bite all these people into betting the over, but then it will just like some of these crazy things happen with these prop bets. So I'm going over, really no logic behind it, but I don't see how he doesn't change his wardrobe at least one time.
Okay, yeah, I think he probably will. I don't really have anything to say on this. I mean, he either does or he doesn't. I don't like who cares, honestly. I mean,
That's
I
why
feel
it's
like he will. I mean, I don't know.
that's why we're do that's it's a change of pace. All right,
Yeah, yeah.
the actual game. We have a couple prop bets on the actual game.
Okay.
First of which is number of players to attempt a pass. Over under 2.5. Now we know it's two, obviously,
Right, right.
with Brady and Mahomes. But basically, what this is asking is, do you think there will be another player to throw a football in this game? And I'm going to say yes. I
Mm.
think there's going to be at least one play drawn up, whether it's on the Kansas City side or on the Tampa Bay side, to throw a pass in this game. We've seen it in past Super Bowls, the Philly special, all these plays, the gadget plays that we've seen in Super Bowls past. I think it's going to happen again. Someone will throw a pass. I don't know who it will be, but now whether they complete the pass, I don't know. But this is just whether or not someone else other than the quarterbacks will throw a pass. And I think with these play callers and clever offensive minds and Bruce Arians and Andy Reid, they're going to come up with something. So I'm going to say three players will attempt to pass. What about you?
Um, I'm gonna say under. Like I get your logic there. Like, it's the Super Bowl. Like all bets are off. There's no like you can empty the playbook. Like you can go all in this game and like go with all your pull out all the stops to get what you need to done. But I think the past few years we've had a bunch of trick plays, but I think it's kind of gonna even out because I don't think that's going to be like a every year thing. Um, Doug Peterson just happened to be like really, what's the word?
Gutsy?
Ballsy, I guess, gutsy, right? And that happened to take place a couple years in a row, but I don't think that's going to be a common occurrence.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a prop bet. It's
Right.
just
Yeah. I don't know.
and it's interesting. I didn't gather stats for the actual game prop bets, but I gathered many stats for the prop bets that have nothing to do with the game, like the the national anthem and the halftime show and the commercials. So I don't know. I just
But
kind of
I like what you did better because I looked at a lot of prop bets earlier and it was like first player to score or like I don't know like uh, will anybody throw an interception or like stuff like that. So it's a lot more dull, I guess.
It's funny you mentioned first player to score because that's our next one.
Oh, really?
Actually,
Okay. Right.
it's not our next one. Our next one is longest touchdown of the game. We have two explosive offenses capable of big plays. Will it be over or under 44 and a half yards?
Hmm. I'm gonna say over. Uh, like I said earlier, I think if Kansas City does that bracket thing again in the slot, there's going to be one-on-one on the outside with Mike Evans. And Tom Brady and Mike Evans, they've come a long way since that Week 12 game. They're on the same wavelength. They've got their timing down. And I think they're going to hit at least one or two of those. And um, it's hard to say whether it'll be for a touchdown, but I'm going to say it will. I'm going to say it will.
I agree. There's too much firepower on either side of the ball to not have one big play go for a touchdown. And I think that's what we're going to see, hopefully. There's a lot of fireworks. So I agree. I think it's going to go um, over 44 and a half yards. Now we get to first player or to score a touchdown. So who do you have in this one?
Um, you really can't go. It's really hard to pick this one. Like it could literally be anybody. But um, I'm gonna go with my gut and say um, I'm gonna say Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Okay.
Just to say like screw it. Like I don't like it's gonna be somebody random because like they're gonna like it's not
Yeah.
going to be somebody expected. I feel like for a first touchdown of the game, like they're going to be like extra focusing on like extra focused on covering the star players, and then maybe like the running back will get open. We'll see. I don't know. That's kind of my feeling on it.
Uh, I think the Chiefs will score first. Um, so I'm going to go with uh, Hardman, Nicole Hardman, to score the
Okay,
first. That's just kind of my gut feeling. So there you go.
I could
Um,
definitely see that.
we're not really looking at the odds because we're not really actually betting money on this.
Right, and I don't recommend people
Yeah.
like using our predictions to bet. You can do what you want to. I'm not gonna say anything bad about if you wanted to do this.
Especially on these prop bets because we've never done this before. We don't
Right.
have a lot of experience doing these type
Like
things.
we do not claim to be experts on any of this stuff. Like maybe like Michael did a little bit of research on some of the weird ones, but I mean it's all just fun and games really. It's not anything serious.
But even that research doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it kind of shows a trend, and that's what I like. But uh, it can all get thrown out the window in a matter of seconds.
Right.
Um, we'll see. Um,
You got
Tom Brady.
one more.
Tom Brady total passing yards.
Oh, two more. Okay. Right.
Over
Total
200,
passing yards.
over,
What's the over under?
over under 295.5 yards.
Ooh, okay. I feel like that's going to be under. They're going to be running the ball a lot. I think they'll get a bunch of chunk plays. I don't think they're going to be just throwing it all over the yard, especially not the Bucks. But
I agree with you.
I think
I,
I think it's going to be under.
I agree. In his past couple Super Bowls, um, well, one, he's really struggled in first halves. Um, for the past three Super Bowls, I think he has like three or four picks in the first halves of those games. So Tom Brady led teams have really struggled coming out of the gates in the Super Bowls, and that's led to some of these all-time great comebacks that we've seen in the past decade or so. But also, you mentioned it, the rain could be a factor, the weather could be a factor, and I said earlier that I think Leonard Fournette's going to have a big part in this. They're going to be running the football a lot. They have a need to establish the run. So, and also, I don't think that getting into a passing track meet with Kansas City is the game they want to play. They want to muck it up some.
Right.
That's what they have to do. So, I still think Tom Brady could have a great game, but he's going to be under 295 passing yards.
Right. I think it's going to be more about how he got there than about like the quantity of what he did. Because I think the throws that he's going to have are going to be important, but I think there's not going to be that many, is the thing.
And as a Tampa Bay fan, you don't really want that many.
Right.
So there you go. All right, two more. One more football related, and the other is a post game question. Patrick Mahomes pass attempts, over or under 40 and a half? I'm going over here. I think they're going to throw it all over the yard. They did it in the first matchup. Granted, as I've said many times, it doesn't really matter what happened then, but they were up 27-10 in that game, and they stayed with their approach of continuing to throw the football. He ended up with 49 pass attempts in that game, and I think that's going to continue. Um, I think he'll go over 40 and a half.
Yeah, I think it'll go over as well. They're not going to be running the football that much. Like, I'd be surprised if any of their running backs gets like more than like 12 carries, because against this Tampa Bay defense, like, you don't want to be running the ball that much. Like, that is just not the most efficient way to get yards. You want to be doing your RPOs, you want to be doing your short passes, and using that as a makeshift run game will be a lot more effective.
Right. Okay. And then our last prop bet, there are obviously many more that we could do, but time constraints.
Right.
Gatorade color. So I'll give you some insight into this. It's sort of interesting, I guess. So the betting favorite is orange. Then you have red or pink. They're kind of grouped together as one. Yellow and green, basically. Then you have blue, clear, and purple. So, clear and purple are kind of longer odds, and then orange and red are kind of up there towards the favorites. Now, in the past 15 Super Bowls,
Okay.
see the smirk on your face. All right.
I just can't help but think, like, whenever I'm going to be watching the post game, whenever the coach gets dunked, I'm just going to think about this instead of actually thinking about who won the game. Like, it's really distracting. I know how my brain works.
Here you go. Here's something you didn't know before you came on this podcast. In the past 15 Super Bowls, the Gatorade color for the bath for the coach, it's been orange 5 times, the most of any color, which is probably why they have it as the favorite. Um, it's been clear 4 times. It's been yellow, green, or wine colored 3 times. It's been blue twice and purple once. But you know what it's never been? It's never been red or pink. So that's why I'm going with red or pink for the Gatorade color.
Okay.
Shower on Bruce Arians or Andy Reid. And if you look at these two teams, they both have shades of red in their uniform sort of color scheme.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like red and pink is due its time now. And orange was the color of last year's Super Bowl. I don't have the history of them repeating colors from year to year, but I don't think they'll. I think they'll change it up. I don't think it will be orange. What do you think?
Okay. I think there's a chance that I think it's gonna be yellow, lime green, but you got to think about the colors of the jerseys as well. It's I don't know if it's gonna be red because like one of the teams is gonna be wearing like white, like as their main color because one has to be like the home jerseys, right? So it's one of them is gonna be wearing white. So if you're wearing white, you don't want to be using red Gatorade. I don't know.
Believe that Kansas City, although they're, I guess, the away team here, um, played in Tampa Bay, they're actually going to be wearing their home red.
Hmm.
Well, and Tampa Bay is going to be wearing. But now we're just getting into things we don't need to be talking about. So I think it will be red or pink. Who knows? It could be pink. Um, just because they haven't done it yet. But maybe they don't care about that. Who knows? All right. Well,
I think I don't know what you want to do, but I think we could cut it off right there because we've done a lot of stuff.
yeah, if you want to do that, that's totally fine with me.
Right. We'll get to NBA in one of the next podcasts, but I think this was really good. We got really in depth with the Super Bowl stuff. And thank you for watching. If you've gotten this far, like I know we've been rambling for a long time here. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and consider subscribing. We're on this road to being the best analysts, commentators that we can be. And if you want to join us on this journey, then we'd be welcoming you in with open arms, right? So
One thing. Along those lines, of course, thanks for watching. Hopefully, we gave you an in-depth insight to the Super Bowl. Kind of gave you those general football fans out there. Hopefully, you learned something new during the podcast, and hopefully, you found this entertaining. This will obviously be our last, I guess, football game breakdown until, I guess, for a while now, because this is the last football game until August, late August, early September. But and that's kind of a big part of what we do on this podcast. But hopefully you enjoy this. You learn something new. Like, subscribe. Again, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much all the main podcast platforms out there. You can find us on. So we really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Told your friends about this who are also passionate about sports. Spread the news. We greatly appreciate it, and enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy this weekend. A lot of other good sporting events going on this weekend, but especially enjoy this game. Hopefully, we get a special game that we are hoping for.
right, and this has a chance to be a real classic. So that's gonna do it, y'all. Everything he just said, that we said that 3 times, but we're gonna keep on saying it every podcast. So peace out, y'all.